Hello, and thank you for joining us for the fourth episode in the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Celebration Series, an 8-part live webinar event that will share the experiences and recommendations of female leaders in fire and emergency management. The EDI Celebration Series is a program of the Canadian Association of Fire Chiefs in collaboration with Firefighting in Canada through a generous grant from the Motorola Solutions Foundation. My name is Laura Aiken, editor of Firefighting in Canada. Today's episode will focus on the volunteer sector and rural fire service and will be moderated by Chief Carrie Martins, the first woman board member of the CAFC and chair of the CAFC's Diversity and Inclusion Committee. Chief Martins will be interviewing special guests Parliamentary Secretary Goody Hutchings, Fire Chief Janine Caldbeck from Thetis Island, BC, and Deputy Chief Ivana Irwin from Leduc County, Alberta, who will both be sharing their career experiences and recommendations for increasing equity, diversity, and inclusion in the fire service. This session is being recorded. If you have any questions during the webinar, you can type them into the chat box on your screen at any time. Please add which province you are from to your question, and then we will know which part of Canada the question is coming from. Thank you. And with that, I will turn it over to Chief Martins.
That's great. Thanks, Laura. Thanks again to Firefighting in Canada. And I'd just like to welcome everyone on behalf of the Canadian Association of Fire Chiefs and Firefighting in Canada. We're really thrilled that you're here today, that our guest speakers are with us today, our really special guests. Again, I'd like to thank our funder, Motorola Solutions Foundation, for allowing us to continue our project called A Fire Service for All. In this regard, I'm pleased to tell you that as of Friday on the CAFC website, we have launched the application process for a new award that we're really excited about. So the award is for those who are showing leading practices in equity, diversity, and inclusion. So if you're interested in that, just have a look at the CAFC website. The application process is outlined on that. The award for that will be recognized at Fire Rescue Canada later on in September. So now let me begin with a land acknowledgement for the National Association of the Canadian Association of Fire Chiefs, which is located in Ottawa on the traditional territories of the Anishinaabe Algonquin people, who are also known as the protectors of the Ottawa river watershed, pardon me. We recognize their resilience, their voice, their spirit, and also the hurts and harms of the past. We believe that working together, we can continue on a healing journey that we all share. For those following the series, over the past few sessions, we've talked with women fire chiefs in large metro departments and agencies from Vancouver to Mississauga to Calgary. Today, we are going to look at another crucial dimension of women leadership in our country, namely those women leaders who dedicate their time and expertise to rural and remote areas and volunteer departments, something that all of our guests know a lot about. One of the special gifts in our country is a Department for Women and Gender Equality and Rural Economic Development. And as Laura has said, we're privileged today to have the opportunity to hear from MP Goody Hutchings, who is Parliamentary Secretary in this area. So welcome, MP Hutchings. Thank you for joining us today.
Carrie, thank you. And first of all, I work for you folks, so please call me Goody.
Okay. Thank you. Well then, Goody, how about we get our conversation started with you? Can you tell us a little bit how you started in this area of work? And can you share with us a little bit about the role of your office?
I can. So again, first of all, thanks again for inviting me. It's always a pleasure to talk to some strong, powerful women. And I'm speaking to you from my home in the Long Range Mountains in the beautiful west coast of Newfoundland and Labrador, which is the traditional territory of the Mi'kmaq and the Beothuk people of my province. And it is an honor to be here with you, strong, powerful leaders in your community, you're advocates, you're feminists, and you believe in championing the roles of women. And that's kind of why I got into politics too. And I know it might sound corny, but you do get into whatever your profession is to make a difference. And I certainly did too. I'm the first woman MP in this riding. And I just want to tell you that I really understand rural, because I get great delight in saying to people that the land mass of my riding is bigger than Switzerland. And I have over 200 little communities. Average community is probably 200 or 300 people. And many of the folks on the call will get this. I have 86 volunteer fire departments and 1 paid fire department. So I truly get how important the work is that you do, the important work that all firefighters do, and how do we work together with everyone to make sure that we change the fact that only 4% of women professional firefighters are women. We need to change that, you know. Only 16% of software engineers are women. 11% of computer programmers are women. So I'm delighted to be on a call today with some game changers and leaders in this, that we can work together to make sure we include everyone, and we grow the numbers of women and gender diverse people, because we bring a different skill set to the table. We all know that. And I'm sure in firefighting, you can talk of the different skill set that you bring as well. And in politics, those of us that represent a rural riding and those of us women in rural riding look at things at a total different way again. So I get into this to make a difference, and my province has been good to me. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to give back and try to make a difference for all of this beautiful riding and also the country as well.
Okay, great. Thank you. So Janine, how about we pop over to the other end of the country, and what got you into firefighting?
Hey, greetings from the Salish Sea. I was a single parent and with not very much financial backing, and I realized that our fire department, local fire department, needed people, and I could only support it by time, not by funding, and so that's how I got into it when my daughter was old enough, and I've been stuck here ever since, 25 years. So, that was basically why they took me in, and I just moved up through the ranks.
Great. Ivana, what about you?
Hello, everyone. So for me, similar to Janine, also a single parent, but we are immigrants from Eastern Europe, and when I came to Canada, I've always wanted to hold a position where I could give back to a country that would bring a family over and just say, here, you can start all over and have absolutely anything you desire if you work hard enough. And I actually started I was a nurse. I'm still a nurse. I hold that on a casual basis because I felt that would be one way to give back, to take care of the people that lived here, take care of the country that way. And one day I sat in a small town, rural community hall. I went to one of the town hall meetings, and beside me sat a gentleman who I did not know was a volunteer firefighter, and he started chatting me up a little bit and wanted to know what I did. And when he found out I had some skill set from a medical perspective, he really sold the fire service to me from a volunteer perspective, about how great it would be to have someone at the station that could teach the guys. At that time, the volunteer service was quite small where we started, some crucial medical components so that our service could get better from there. And I never ever thought that would become an opportunity for me as a single parent, as a single mom, and as a woman. So I went. It was eye-opening. My first call was a fantastic search and rescue that became a pretty significant rescue. They rode in the back of the ambulance all the way to the hospital, where I was actually working as a nurse the following morning. And so the people in the ER thought I was playing some kind of a costume get-up because I was in a completely different uniform. And the patient was a little bit bewildered because the next day I went to go see him in my nursing uniform. But it was the start of something amazing, and I haven't regretted it. I spent 14 years at the volunteer station before I actually, in that dual career, and worked my way through leadership in nursing. And then a year and a half ago, switched from full-time nursing to full-time fire and do casual nursing on the side, but still service-oriented.
That's great. I think I started in a volunteer department as well, and I think that's one of my favorite things about the volunteer fire service is just the mix of people that you get that are drawn to it, and just some truly incredible people for sure. So maybe Ivana, staying with you, can you walk us through some of the challenges that you've faced or observed and how you've overcome them?
Sure, I certainly have a few that are that stick closer to the front that you never really forget. And one of the probably most surprising components was when I took the job full time here as a deputy chief. And we were just finishing a meeting, and the county manager pulled me aside and he said, you need to know that we have some serious harassment and such comments against you from the public. They're quite upset that a female was offered the role of deputy chief in the county. And we don't want you to worry, but the RCMP is involved, and just make sure perhaps you shouldn't take the same way home every day. So, and then he said, I'm sure this happens all the time. And I was thinking, no, you know, I've been in a leadership role in Alberta Health Services, but in a more female-dominated profession for a very long time. I've never had this happen. This shouldn't be a thing. So it was one of those moments that left me a little bit speechless. I didn't know at that time if perhaps I made the wrong decision in taking on a career in a community that perhaps wasn't ready and wasn't seeing females in the role, but decided that perhaps it was more important to look at it that those attitudes come a little bit from perhaps an unconscious bias, or maybe they don't understand what a woman can bring to the service. So plugged along, and the employer was very supportive, obviously, through that. And so here I am, year and a half later, and we're making change. So that one was a little bit more recent. I also, throughout the entire fire career, my parents are very traditional Eastern European, and so their women do not do this kind of work. So there hasn't been a lot of support, and still I find it very difficult to understand what would drive me as a female to do this job. And in the 14 years, they've only really came to one event that was fire related. So you do challenge, you know, it's you're fighting a lot against some of the perspectives and old way of thinking that perhaps women are not made to be able to do physically difficult work, but perhaps also don't have the capacity to understand the operational components of such a job that would be very firefighting, very male oriented. So those two I still battle with. And then, like Janine, single parent, right? You want to make sure that you are showing your children that you can stand on your own 2 feet, that no matter what it takes, you can do what you have a love and passion for. And I certainly love and have passion for this job. Otherwise, it would have been difficult to do this alongside with a nursing career and be a single mom for 14 years. It gives me satisfaction. I would not take back one moment. And when you focus on the passion and the love, you can go through all the necessary steps to get you to a place where you want to be and see yourself. And of course, others would include such as the uniforms and the fact that it's sometimes difficult to find support because you might find yourself in a room full of men and your perspective is slightly different. So when you start asking for tampons on the units, they look at you and say, but why don't you just get prepared? Well, you don't put toilet paper in your gear. You know, it's on the trucks for you. So let's broaden that perspective a little bit. So having those conversations and having someone to help you battle that way of thinking that might be ingrained in the service, certainly it feels nice to reach out and have other women out there that can help you build that message stronger.
For sure.
Thank you.
Thanks. Janine, what are some of the challenges you've been facing?
Well, some of them with Ivana and also Goody, I'm sure, as being the first in your region, first female. It's always difficult. I came from, I think women of my age have always had this problem. I was a mountaineering instructor for the Canadian Armed Forces, and you know, people wouldn't take you seriously. You know, I was in mountain rescue, and people would send me for coffee, whereas I was the most skilled to go places and do rescues. And so you tend to sort of work harder to be half as good. I don't know. Yes, Goody's nodding. And I ran a chainsaw for the Forest Service, and the superintendent would always come out and look for me and not the guys, just to see how much wood I had down, and slashing and stuff like that. So that's the challenge that I had before I became a firefighter, and so it was just part of what goes on that I found. I think we have a great community here. I have a very strict rule about no politics or religion in the fire hall, which keeps us all on an even keel. You can't, none of that in the hall, because we have such a diverse background. And then I've learned to work around. I have workarounds when we have an evangelical Bible school here, and for years I realized that their culture is not seeing women the way we see ourselves as strong leaders, to put it tactfully. So my workaround was to send a male counterpart, a deputy or an officer, to deal with them, and I still got what I needed and wanted. So and now, it's fine. After so many years, they get used to you. But those are challenges I think we all face. And then I'm the chair of the Diversity and Inclusion Leadership Committee for the Fire Chiefs Association of BC, and I hear a lot of stories about, still there's the dinosaurs out there, and I realize that we shouldn't be excusing them anymore. We should be educating more, when just in their face say, why are you saying that? And let them know that we can do the job, because actually we're probably overqualified in some ways compared to other people, because we try so hard to make sure that we are doing everything correctly to be inclusive and diverse.
Right. Great, thank you. And Goody, from the political perspective, what challenges have you faced and observed throughout your career?
I'll just go to my previous life. I was in the wilderness tourism sector, and I built a remote lodge in the middle of nowhere. As my son used to say, if you want to know where mom is, she's in the middle of nowhere. And it was fly fishing and soft adventure tourism, and people would, so my real name is Gudrid. My mom's folks were Swedish, so everybody calls me Goody. So nobody, I used to get a lot of Mr., right? And I just never bothered me. And then people would land and they'd be looking around, and I would, yeah, I'm right here, it's me. And then you get that look, like you said, Janine, and I did that 25 years ago, and it's like, oh my God, we're going in the middle of the woods with a woman. It's like, yeah. And don't worry, I know how to strip down the generator, and I can take you out in the outboard, and we've got, but women have to, you're so right, Janine, especially our age group, you've got to work twice as hard 25, 30 years ago, because people looked at you like, oh my God, there's no way a woman could be doing this, right? Well, like, yeah, women did do it and forged the path for many women to come behind us. But I think you hit the nail on the head, my friend. It's education. So we've got to start educating the little, in kindergarten and before that, is that, yeah, this is the norm now, that a woman can be a firefighter, that a woman can be a politician, that a woman can be a construction worker, that a woman can be, we've got to stop the stereotypical, that, of the male and the female roles in this, that we've broken a lot of ceilings, and we've got to keep doing it. And I think it has to start with education, and earlier the better. It is a little better in politics, I think, than it was, years and years ago. But look, the Old Boys Club is still out there. The Old Boys Club is alive and well, and it just takes more of us standing up and being firm and saying, yeah, I'm sorry, we're not taking that anymore, right? And by working together in every field, I think that's how we just start to show the way that, yeah, women can do and are going to do anything.
Great, I like that. So on that note then, so why is women's leadership so important to our federal government, and why is it so important in Canada?
As we all know, and I'm sure everybody on the call knows, women think different. We're wired different. We put a different lens on it. I'm so proud of our government that we came out in Budget 2021, where we committed that huge $30 billion towards a Canada-wide early learning and childcare system. My child is 30 years old now, but I know for people with young families with young children, that is a huge part of why maybe women couldn't go to work, because did they have childcare? So I'm proud to be part of a team that gets how we have to look after every Canadian. But if we are going to build back better and get on our feet, we need women to be part of the team leading the way. Therefore, women will be part of the team working on the solutions and taking us forward in the solutions. The days of an all man leadership is gone, and I'm so proud of our prime minister and our team. His cabinet is gender, it's equal gender wise, and we're diverse, we're inclusive, and that's how you get those thoughts around the cabinet table and around the committee table, is when you include everybody in the conversations. If you don't have everybody in the conversations, you're not coming up solutions. And the same thing, what I love with Minister Monsef and myself, like I torment my colleagues all the time. There's rural, there's really rural, and there's remote rural. So, when we get chatting, I'm like, let me tell you what really rural and remote rural is like, because I have some communities that are accessible by boat only. And when you come from a big city, and nothing against the big urban centers, people look at me and go, oh my God. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, I've got communities that have, there's one school that does, what you read about from 100 years ago, that's still happening. And, a teacher teaches 3 and 4 grades at a time. And, so it's having the various conversations make us such the country that we can be and that we're going to be. So without everybody at the table in the political world and making the decisions with input from everybody, we won't get better. So that's why I'm delighted to be part of a team that does include everybody.
Yeah, well, that's great, and yeah, I mean, we obviously agree with everything you've said, 100%, and we really appreciate all the support that your ministry provides to women and the diverse population that's in our country. So Ivana, why do you think women in the fire service, women leadership in the fire service is so important?
Well, as Goody had noted, if you don't have the perspective of everyone at the table, you're not making effective decisions or policies around what's required on the floor for firefighting. And if you look at Alberta, for example, we are still not seeing the same presumptive cancers for women as men that are being accepted with WCB, because women are not represented the same way as men are when it comes to the job itself, and then when you're looking at long-term outcomes and all those components. But we know that testicular cancer is one of the really big presumptive drivers for men, but for women, ovarian cancer is not. And we've sadly in our own district had female firefighter that passed of same, and so it was impossible to get her family the support that you would expect that a firefighter would get from WCB. So policy driving is so important around there. Why is it that we still, and I'm just talking about my experience where I work, don't have any policies around women that are pregnant in the fire service, right? We know we're exposed to certain carcinogens, that we should be looking after a female that's carrying a child, and how we can maintain that job and work with that individual so that they can have a successful pregnancy. Well, probably because those questions are not being asked around the table if you don't have women in the service, and or if you don't have women at the table to bring a perspective that may be overlooked. So just a few examples of some of the components. Women in leadership can also help close a gender gap. That discussion, forever long discussion around the gender pay gap, right? If you have leaders that are female, they can help drive that change. And then I would say that women are great mentors, and from in the fire service, when there isn't a lot of people to turn to, if there's more females in the service, to help mentor the young women that are coming through so that they can support them through some of possibly difficult positions that they're going to be in, difficult places they're going to find themselves in. Sometimes it's tough when a full room is male and the perspectives are slightly different, and you have to fight for what your voice to be heard. So thank you for the question.
Thank you. Janine, what about from your perspective on why it's so important to have women leaders in the fire service and what they can bring to those policy discussions and decisions that have to get made?
Well, Goody was right on where she said we think differently, and that's not a bad thing. It just is part of the whole spectrum of how leadership happens. And one of the first changes I made when I became in a leadership role was to change the when we sat in the drill room and listened to, you know, the business part of the meeting or whatever, or decisions that had to be made. We had all of us, like the old teachers, you had the chief at the top, front room at the top, and everybody sat there and you looked forward and they looked at you. And when I became chief, I put all the tables in a big circle, because it's not the fire ground where, you know, you ultimately are in charge. It rests on your shoulders. But I totally believe in compromise and coming to, you know, finding a solution together, just like Ivana was saying, because we're all stakeholders and we're all equal in the running of the fire hall for that reason. And so that's how I started to change, and then moving on from that, speaking about mentoring, etc. Bringing young people in. Once you have a junior firefighter program, even if they quit when they go off to school or off to find a job, that spirit of volunteering never leaves them. Even if they decide to volunteer at the SPCA, they were educated that volunteering really gave them something. So that's, I'm sorry, I've got my ear out because I think we have a fire call, and if it's, we don't have very many firefighters here, and I'm watching to see which trucks are going out and if I have to off in a minute, but so far I'll stay with you.
Okay. All right. Well, if you have to go, you have to go. We appreciate that for sure. I love what you said though about, you know, just instilling that the importance of volunteerism in your community and in society. I think that's such a valuable lesson that we can all be teaching, you know, especially our young people, and you know, bringing the tables together instead of, you know, creating that uniform space as opposed to maintaining that hierarchy all the way down, because yeah, there's the fire ground and then there's the hall. So that's great. So I wanted to kind of get into, you know, maybe some recommendations that you each might have for departments, you know, recommendations to departments and to rural communications and stuff. So Goody, do you want to start with that one?
Love to. This is great conversation, by the way. You know, I think we've got to remember to change the system. We've got to be part of the system. You can't do it from the sidelines. And complacency will kill you if we keep doing the same thing. You know, when did Ford come out with their truck? However long that was. Well, they've changed over time. You know, we all need to change over time as well. And you know, another thing that we've done that I'm so proud of is we realize the importance of connectivity, especially in your service, you know, where you have connectivity in cell service. You know, in my riding, up until a few months ago, 46% of my riding had no connectivity, right? So we know how important that is for education, for health and safety, for frankly just keeping in touch. And we need the online component for our day-to-day life now, even though I hope people are clicking local and buying local when they do shop online. But you know, we need to encourage and make sure that we have all the systems in place as we do grow and the system grows, that we've making sure that everything that you need to do your work and rural Canada needs to do its work is there. So again, we all need to be part of the system to change. We need to be accepted of change and realize what we need to do to make it. And only by working together will we achieve that. We're not going to get it if we sit on the sidelines and twiddle our thumbs.
Mhm.
Great. And Janine, if you're still there for a few more minutes, I'll shoot that one back to you.
Okay, I just was distracted there.
Okay, sorry. So just recommendations to rural departments.
You have to think outside the box. That's an old silly saying, but it's absolutely true. To get what you need, and just like Goody said, Ford changed, we have to change. Um, so we have firefighters in my department, but we've got so few firefighters that we have to be able to still respond effectively and efficiently. And so you bring in what we call auxiliary teams, and we train up people who they don't want to become firefighters. They're not elderly. They've retired, they've moved to the island. They feel that they can volunteer, but they don't want to drill every week. They don't want to go through NFPA training. They don't, do the standards. So we train them to do things that are outside of the red zone, the hot zone. So we have a water auxiliary that tends water to us and goes back and forth. We have traffic control. We train those guys for traffic control. And I use guys meaning everybody, because it's everybody. We have rest and rehab. And we just got up and running an SPU team, which is Structural Protection Unit. 6 people from the community, and they can be summer residents because you don't have to really worry about wildfire in the winter here on the wet coast. So so we think outside the box, and we tell people, everybody, not, if you're healthy enough to stand up and, walk around, we'll take you, let's train you. And that's how we get around for rural firefighting and in remote areas. We start including the whole community, and that has really set us up for a lot of community buy-in. And the other thing that I'm really passionate about is making sure our reputation for service, commitment, and confidentiality in tiny communities is sacrosanct. We don't talk about any of our medical calls, because we do all of them because the ambulance service here comes by a water taxi and meets us at the dock. So we're very, very cognizant of how confidentiality is so important in small communities. We can talk about fires, but we never talk about people.
Yeah.
So that's a big one. I think that the rural and most rural communities know this, because we do tend to live in each other's pockets because we have 18 hats on, the community center hat and the recycling hat and the teachers association hat, and so yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I think you're right. Community buy-in is so very important, especially in our more rural areas and our smaller communities. And you're right. I mean, we adapt, we improvise, and overcome. Right? That's what the fire service does. So, Ivana, what are your thoughts on recommendations to rural departments?
I would say that one hugely untapped resource would be the stay-at-home moms in our local small communities. And when you are mindful about how you do your recruitment and let them see themselves in the job and make it an experience that's easy to attain, you will have incredible service commitment from those women. As was already noted earlier, we work a lot harder to demonstrate that we are capable of doing the job. And a lot of the women do want to give back to the communities that they live in so that they feel satisfaction in protecting their loved ones and their families and where they're at. And we, in our service, we have 8 stations. One of them is very industrial, so it attracts the typical industrial, strong men. But we have a lot of small departments, and they attract the females. And when you go and talk to the district chiefs, they'll tell you that they are their best firefighters, committed, devoted, passionate, They want to protect the people that they know, and they study hard and they work hard, and they're an absolutely untapped resource. So my recommendation would be hone in on how you do your recruitment and really focus on making people see themselves in the job so they can find it easier to get
Yeah,
in.
that's great. Yeah, it's about changing the societal perception of what a firefighter is, right?
Mm-hmm. Very much.
So I think we're getting close to running out of time, and I don't want Laura to come back in and shake a finger at me. So real quick, just wanted to go over, so recommendations for emerging leaders and for those with leadership aspirations. Ivana, what would you say?
I would say dream big, set goals, because anything that's really worth having requires a lot of hard work, and you do need to sacrifice to get there. And that's true for men and women. You just have to dream it and it can become a reality. You need to make the connections, you need to depend on each other, and realize that it's going to be a little bit of a hard road to get there.
Thanks. Janine?
I think you absolutely need a sense of humor. And you don't have to express it, but you sure absolutely need a sense of humor. And you also need pretty thick skin um, to let stuff roll off and just don't lose your cool. Just present yourself of who you actually are. And we are not angry women. We aren't. We are just professionals and serious, and we are trained. So for leadership, yeah, sense of humor, and cultivate your friends so that you can just once in a while just let off your steam and then go back to the job.
Great. And Goody, some final thoughts on those with leadership aspirations?
Look, my friends, my new friends here now hit the nail on the head. You know, it is dream big. You can do anything you want. As a woman, gender diverse, if you want to go to the moon, you can. And if you want to work in a garden, you can. And you do have to work hard at every single thing. So people who think that anything comes easy, sorry, that's not the reality of this world. And you do have to be able to smile. And what I always like to add to that, Janine, is you have to be able to sleep at night too. Like I can go to bed and sleep at night and say, yeah, I did a hard day's work. I worked hard. Did I get everything done? No, but I'm glad of what I accomplished. And I've got a plan to go forward. I think a lot of times people make a plan and say, oh, I've got to stick to this. Well, I would say a plan is like a tree. You've got your trunk and then it's going to go. And then all of a sudden, no, you're going to branch off this way and that way. So make sure you keep any opportunity open to you and work hard at it, dream big at it, have fun, and you can be successful. And, I just want to say to everybody that's out there today, thank you for all the dedicated service that you're doing in your communities, for cheering on those women and gender diverse who are going to follow in your footsteps, and showing exactly that when there's an opportunity out there, that women can and women will, and women are changing the world. So don't think for a second that we can't, because we can. So girl power, let's get this done.
That's great. Thank you so much. Those were kind of all the formal questions that I had for our conversation. I just have to say I love the conversation. Thank you so much to each of you for doing this with us today. I don't know if there's any questions from the audience. Feel free to type those into the question box, and we'll monitor those. But maybe as those come in,
Can I ask a question?
absolutely.
I'd love to ask a question of you three, and maybe start with you, Carrie. So how did you adapt to COVID-19 to ensure that you were still able to serve your communities? Like, we all know that, stores put up the plexiglass and everybody had their PPE, but how much was a challenge for you folks, and what risks did you take and put in place to make sure that you were still able to fight fires? Because, COVID didn't have, I'd be curious in what an impact, because the obvious for retail and some things in an office situation, but you're not in an office situation. So how did you manage to work within the boundaries but it's still being able to serve your communities?
Right. Yeah, that's a great question. For us, to be honest, I don't feel like doing our day-to-day job changed all that much. You know, we have PPE measures in place that we use all the time anyway when we go on medical calls. So it was really just about kind of enhancing protocols that we already had in place. So, you know, and through our dispatch system, we knew if there was an increased risk of COVID-19 on a medical call that we were attending. And if there was, you know, the crews just added their extra layers of PPE. For us, I think you know, and as far as fighting fires and MVCs and that sort of thing, you know, our crews would wear their masks when they were out and about. We decreased the number of firefighters in a truck, so we limited our truck to carrying just 4 people, just 4 firefighters. While they were in the truck, they all had to mask. And I think the biggest thing for us was closing our doors to the public. We don't like doing that. You know, we love throwing the doors open on a nice summer day and having the kids walk by or ride their bikes by and come on in and look at the fire trucks. That's, you know, that's a huge part of what we feel our job is to be there for our community. So I think for us anyway, that was maybe the hardest part was having to close our doors.
We found that additionally to that, the training, we ended up taking a step back from training just to decrease the opportunity for exposure to the firefighters on the floor. Rural service really difficult, right? So sometimes if you have one exposure and then need to quarantine an entire crew with it, that is a huge impact to small service departments. So we weren't willing to take the risk. So the guys are going to be, for the first time, regular training face-to-face on July the 6th, and they're beyond the moon excited after a 14 or 18-month online training attempt.
Yeah, online training and firefighters don't mix very well.
Yeah, it was just a lot of seminars. They don't like it.
Yeah.
In my hall, we and in my community, it's a big thing, and so same thing as Carrie and Ivana said. Although we've gone back to regular training a lot sooner, but we broke down into little squads and had 4 people 6 feet apart and not big training. We put it out to the public. They couldn't come in the hall, but we have right at the front door big bottles of hand sanitizer as a free refill station, and also we always gave out masks and gloves. That's always sitting in the front of the fire hall there for free. People can come by, and then we had a couple of our firefighters had different political opinions about the pandemic, and they were invited to leave until the pandemic is over, and that's a work safe thing. We just couldn't have that kind of diverse opinions in the hall, so that's what we did.
Yeah. Great. So I did have a couple of questions, and I don't see, and Laura, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't see anything popping up on my my little screen there. So maybe I'll just go ahead with these. So Goody, we're hearing a lot about the importance of women in politics, and you know, just actually just this morning I read MP McKenna's statement about her recent decision. So, you know, with a potential election being discussed in the media anyway, you know, what are your thoughts on women in leadership in elections and through the political process?
That's a great question. And, you know, I wish my colleague and friend Catherine McKenna all the best. But, you know, the first time I got asked to run, my son was a baby. And I said, I won't tell you how long ago, that'll age myself. And I said, no, I want to wait until he grows up. And I was asked it was the 7th time that I got asked that I said, yeah, this is my time. So I wanted to wait until he was grown and gone to university. So I had time. So I understand for Catherine now, you know, she has 3 children. They're under, you know, they're not gone to university. So a lot of jobs take a lot of your time. And when you give in public service, be it municipal, federal, provincial, and what you what you folks do when you make a commitment. You could go on a call and you think it's an 8-hour shift, and then all of a sudden it turns into a 20-hour day. And we have a lot of that. So I understand for all my colleagues that have young families or with aging parents. It's a big commitment. There's no 40-hour work week in this. So I understand that. And one thing the pandemic did is it gave us a little taste of working from home. And technology is great when it works. Now I wish we were doing this in person, and it's great to be able to get in person and have meetings, but technology has shown, look, I'm in Newfoundland, you're on the other coast, so we can use technology, but we still need the face-to-face from time to time. So, I understand that. Look, there's one person who knows when the election is, and that's a prime minister, but I'm going to work hard, and I know all my colleagues on all sides of the house are going to work hard for Canadians every day. We've got to get through this pandemic. We've got to get people vaccinated. We've got to get that done. Then we've got to get people back to work, and then we've got to focus on building back stronger and better for our economy. And I just had this conversation. The meeting that I had before this was with a group of tourism operators in my riding, and they're like, we don't want to go back to where we were in 2019. We now want to go to what let's just open the doors and see what the potential is. So I hope we all think that way of, okay, let's learn from this pandemic, because there was no playbook when it hit the March before last. We all thought it was going to be over in a few weeks. So there's no playbook. So let's get through it. And I'm proud of our government of what we've done. And I agree with you, Janine. There are some people that think this is a hoax. I certainly don't. I know lots of people that that had the virus, and I know of people that have had friends and relatives lost with it. This is serious stuff. So let's get vaccinated so we can get to our new normal, whatever it is. If that means an election, fine. But in the meantime, I'm going to work hard. And like I said, I know all my colleagues are going to work hard for Canadians every day as we build back better and get our economy going again.
Great, thank you. I'm going to try to squeeze in one more question each for Ivana and Janine. I don't see Laura telling me to stop, so we're going to keep going. So just quick question for both of you. What have you learned about preparing for council meetings and for speaking with the media as a woman in your role? What preparations do you think you've had to make that your male counterparts maybe haven't?
Well, I think that the media as a female chief loves you, but they're as fast to jump on you as they are to love you. If you make a mistake, right? Because then the angle could be different, and you can demonstrate that, look, she actually does not know what she's talking about. So I would say that unfortunately, still gender does matter, and you do have to, or my experience has been, spend a lot of time prepping and preparing to make sure that you are 100% on point with what you're going to deliver as a message, just so that you can ensure that you support or you demonstrate that women can, again, do this job well enough, and don't give them an inch to knock you down at the knees to say that you can't.
Thanks. Janine?
Yeah, I agree. I also, staying on point is great, but if you're asked a question that you can't answer, I think that it is honest and forthright to say, I don't know that at this time. I will research that and get back to you. And you don't often see, or used to not often see, guys doing that. And so I was lucky because, well, I'm going through the fire officer you do communications, etc. And so you learn to do that. And I'm a shy person, and I have had to learn to stand in front of groups and get across what I need them to know so that I can do my job better. And that's a challenge, and I try to meet that, as I say, not being afraid of saying you don't know and making something up. That's ridiculous. So yeah, keeping it succinct is good too.
Great. Well, I think we are pretty much out of time. I don't really want this conversation to end, but I think they're going to kick us off soon. Thank you so much. Yeah, I think that is, that's it for our time today. Special thanks again from all of us at CAFC to Ivana, Janine, and Goody. Thanks so much for your time. Our friends at Firefighting in Canada, Motorola Solutions Foundation, and our audience, of course. Thank you for joining us today and for tuning in. Be sure to join us for the August celebration series. There'll be dates and finalization of our guest speakers on that coming out soon. Before I turn it back to Laura for some final comments from Firefighting in Canada, have a good and reflective holiday that is coming up. Keep well and be safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well said. Thank you. Stay safe.
Absolutely. Thank you. That was an amazing conversation, everybody. Thank you all for your time today, guests and attendees. Just want to let everybody know this webinar will be emailed to all those registered within 24 hours. We hope you enjoyed this session. That's all from me. Have a great day, everyone. Bye.
Great.
Thank
Thanks so
you.
much. Keep up the great work, ladies. You're truly trailblazers. Take care now.
You too. Thank you.